All right, we have hit 100 participants, so I'm going to start the meeting at 100. I think that's a good round number. I appreciate everybody for logging in today and being a part of WorkQuest's 2020 compliance seminar for CRPs. This is something that we like to do every year. Usually we come and see you all in person, but of course we're adapting this year because of the current public health crisis. So appreciate you all taking time out of your day to come and spend a few hours with us to talk about some just updates on compliance requirements and CRP requirements, what's going on with the state use program and the Texas Workforce Commission and WorkQuest. So thank you. I'm Kyle Radford. I'm the Director of Business Development for WorkQuest. I've been with WorkQuest for just over 14 years now and worked in a lot of arenas like compliance and product development. And I'm happy to be here today to talk to you about the state use program. Things will look a little differently today, so I appreciate your patience as we all work through this. But to get started about what we're going to be talking about today, we'll do a update on the Purchasing from People with Disabilities Works Wonders program, go over where we are and where we're going, look at the Texas Workforce Commission, and speak to some of the staff that are on the call today about purchasing procedures and rules, their 14C transition plans, the advisory committee, and then those staff desk reviews that TWC staff come out to your CRPs and perform to make sure that you're maintaining your state use requirements. We'll look at state use participation requirements. That's something that all the CRPs are required to do, like recertification, your state use wage report, the different forms that you submit, the documentation that you keep on the individuals with disabilities that are counted under the program, and then your set-aside agreement with WorkQuest. We'll also talk about person-centered planning, what the requirements are as a CRP for person-centered planning, and the TWC employee-centered vocational assessment form. That it's a new form that just came out that TWC is using to meet the person-centered planning requirements for this program. And finally, we'll go over state use product and service contracting. So all the government contracting, the assignment process, and tools on how to fill out a cost analysis for services and products, and understanding what the value added requirements of this program are. Since we are doing this virtually this year instead of in person, a few requests. If you could keep your volume muted throughout the presentation. If you do have the ability, we'd love to see your smiling faces so you can enable your video. Questions will be fielded in the chat box. So if you have any questions, you can enter those in the chat box. And if you're having technical issues, please email tjohnson@workquest.com. That's Tiffany Johnson, folks. But for those of you that are on, we appreciate you being here. We're going to go a little bit over the Works Wonders program, give an update of the program, as reported in the 2019 annual report. So all the information that we collect from you all, that we're going to be going over those requirements today. We all compile that information, report it to the Workforce Commission. That then gets reported to the legislature and the governor. So because of all the work that you do, the great job you do employing individuals with disabilities, we are the second largest state use program in the country. We employ just under 6,000 individuals with disabilities. And last year we paid almost $49 million in wages to those individuals. So without you guys, we wouldn't be as successful as we are. You can also see the numbers for individuals without disabilities that are employed and wages paid to workers without disabilities. That tops almost 15 million as well. And then a lot of good work is done in outplacing individuals. Over 2,700 individuals were outplaced into competitive integrated employment last year. That's the entire outplacement for CRPs. For Works Wonders employees under this program, 318 were outplaced in competitive integrated employment. And last year we had 106 CRPs participate in the program. So again, this was another successful year of employing individuals with disabilities. You can look at the data from wages and benefits paid to people with and without disabilities, and what an increase we had over 2018 to 2019 in wages paid to individuals with disabilities. And we're still collecting information on this current fiscal year. That'll end at the end of this month, and then we'll have the totals for FY20. Looking at the breakdown of the types of employees that are employed in the Works Wonders program, we had, like I said, 5,804 Texans with disabilities, the largest category being those with a mental health condition, and then the others are detailed there. So just an idea of the types of folks that are served through the state youth program. I wanted to give the Workforce Commission a second to talk about themselves so you can understand how this program is positioned. We are under the Workforce Commission. They're our oversight agency. We switched to the oversight them as our oversight agency in 2015. So the way it's organized, we have the TWC commissioners and then the executive director, that's Ed Cerna. Some of you might remember Ed Cerna was the deputy executive director. He was over the program, but now we've been moved under vocational rehabilitation, which is a division of TWC, and they've created the Office of Disability Employment Strategies. And the director of the Office of Disability Employment Strategies is Michael Hooks. He's on the call today, and I wanted to give Mike an opportunity to introduce himself and talk a little bit about the Workforce Commission. I think you're muted, Mike. Let me.
My gosh, I'm going to have to remember what I said. Thank y'all for giving me a moment this afternoon, and thank y'all for the work, amazing work you do, helping individuals with disabilities maximize their employment opportunities. It is, as the title of this new office, Disability Employment Strategies, is what we're all about. I might add that this new office, in addition to the Purchase from People with Disabilities program, we also have the Randolph Shepherd program in the state of Texas, the Business Enterprises of Texas, which is a program that provides employment for legally blind Texans to operate food service and vending on state, federal, and private properties. And they've got about 100 of those, about 110 right now throughout the state of Texas. It also helps a great deal, not to the numbers that y'all have, but certainly hundreds of individuals with disabilities are obtaining employment and a good living over there too. We started up, I came to this new office, and we transferred PPD to ODS in November of last year. And we've been working hard to get the program staffed. And I apologize for if we have not moved as fast as as Kelvin and Howard traditionally do in getting duties done. If there was any slowdown whatsoever, it was my fault, not theirs. Those gentlemen are amazing, and they speak very highly of all of y'all as well. I appreciate WorkQuest's patience with us too as we've moved to this point. I'm proud to say that we do now have the PPD program staffed, and that includes our new PPD program manager, who will be your point of contact as in addition to Kelvin and Howard as time goes on. And we even this week added Peggy, our new administrative assistant. So we've got someone to keep Howard in line now. Maybe even, probably not Kelvin, but maybe Howard. But we're proud to do anything that we can for y'all. We appreciate the hard work that you do. And I would like to, I'm going to sign off, but I want to give Juan Garcia, the new PPD manager, a chance to say hello to everybody. Juan?
Yes, thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, everybody. Juan Garcia, I'm glad to be on board. I'm excited and looking forward to working with all of you. Just a little bit of background on myself. I have extensive workforce background. So as I've been reading and immersing myself into the program, I can see just the synergy with what workforce does and what the program does. So I see a lot of parallels. So I'm looking forward to working with Howard and Kelvin and Mike and the CRPs and the CNA in moving the program forward. I'm learning as I go along, so please bear with me and have a little patience, but I will come up to speed. So thank you again, and I'm looking forward to working with you, and I'm glad to be on board.
Thank you both, and we appreciate your partnership and everything you guys do for the state youth program, making this such an accessible method of employing individuals with disabilities. A little bit about the Workforce Commission and how it's set up. There are 3 current commissioners, one representing public, one representing labor, and one representing employers. The responsibilities of the Workforce Commission would be to write the program rules. We're going to be talking about that in a minute. TWC is going through the rules review process, something that hasn't been done since 2017. They contract with a central nonprofit agency, that is WorkQuest. So you hear Central Nonprofit Agency, or CNA, that's WorkQuest. We are contracted with them to administer the day-to-day operations of the program. They recertify and certify all CRPs. That's all of you. If you're on this call, you've been certified as a CRP, and you may or may not have gone through the recertification process. TWC also performs CRP compliance desk reviews. We'll go over what's covered in a desk review. So when TWC staff comes by to make sure you have all your compliance requirements in order, you'll know what exactly they're looking for and go through that process a little bit. And then the commissioners approve all products and services that go through the program. Everything that's set aside, all products, service contracts, and temporary service, job classifications and pricing are all approved by the commissioners, and assistance in that process is given by the comptroller. The staff, you've heard from a few of them. The Office of Disability Employment Strategies, Michael Hooks, the director, Juan Garcia, the manager. Thank you both for speaking. And then Kelvin Moore and Howard Joseph are the program specialists. Many of you know Kelvin and Howard. They've come out to your CRPs. Kelvin's with the program for many years, and Howard's been on since we transitioned over to the Workforce Commission. This is how it all works. You've got the Workforce Commission. They're our oversight agency reviewing the products and services. They also have an advisory committee that we'll go over, reviewing performance goals, certification criteria, and defining program objectives. CRPs are actually, that's you all, delivering the products and services by employing individuals with disabilities and serving those individuals with disabilities, delivering it all to the customers, and we have agency oversight. And then the central nonprofit agencies in the middle working to get products and services approved and marketed to our customers, doing billing and invoicing, training opportunities like we're doing today, as well as training to our customers.
Turned up now, barely.
And then presenting new CRPs, helping CRPs get certified as part of the program. All right, a little bit about the advisory committee. The State Youth Advisory Committee is required by Chapter 122, so it's a 13-member committee made up of 4 individuals representing CRPs, 4 representing advocates of individuals with disabilities, 2 individuals with disabilities from the public, and 2 individuals with disabilities that are actually employed at a CRP. Also includes the executive commissioner of HHIC or that person's designee. The responsibilities, they must meet at least semi-annually, and they make recommendations to TWC. So they don't set policy, but they do meet and make recommendations to send to TWC on the performance measures under the program, CRP certification requirements, and program objectives. So they'll be meeting to review all of those things.
Options. If I click on here, wonder what will happen.
All right. They have developed some performance measures. They passed these measures in 2018. TWC is reviewing these, but I wanted to make everybody aware of the performance measures that the advisory committee has passed. They haven't been adopted, but they are being reviewed and looking at how to be implemented by the Workforce Commission. This is something that they could do through the rules process. And again, that's something that they're reviewing right now. So first, the percentage of individuals with disabilities participating in the program that are placed in competitive integrated employment. So that's employment outside of the CRP environment in an integrated setting. CRPs would report that quarterly. That's something you actually report now through your state youth wage report, and the target is 4% of individuals at the CRP per year. Number of hours delivered of career counseling services or training or professional development or education opportunities that would assist employees with disabilities advancing within the organization or accepting those competitive employment positions outside of the CRP. So the target that the advisory committee has proposed would be 1 hour per quarter, and then the CRP would report that quarterly. Looking at performance measures for the central nonprofit agency that they've proposed, the number of hours offered of career counseling services or training or education for employees with disabilities participating in the program where the CRP cannot provide the above. So that performance requirement for the CRP, where you're providing those hours of service or of training, if you're unable to do so, then the CNA would step in and provide that training annually. Number of classes and training developed and published for use by CRPs for employees with disabilities. Target would be 4 unique trainings developed per year by the CNA. Goal to increase employment hours paying minimum wage or higher for individuals with disabilities. That will be reported annually again. And the target is 97% of all hours worked in the program would be at the federal minimum wage or higher. And that is there is some legislation that's been passed since this was, these rules were passed by the advisory committee that addressed that. But I will say that that is a number that the program does meet. And then finally, the CNA, working with the Texas Workforce Commission, will work to improve customer satisfaction with products and services by conducting a survey that happens semi-annually, and the target would be that 90% of customers are satisfied with products and services in the program. And that, again, you've seen the surveys that we do. We do a CRP survey and customer surveys, and that is a goal that we're happy to say we do meet. The customers that use this program are fierce advocates for it, and they agree that they are satisfied, and we do have good quality products and services. So we're happy to use that as a tool when we're talking about the advantages of this program, not only for the individuals with disabilities, but for the customers that utilize it. TWC staff desk reviews. TWC staff is heavily involved in making sure CRPs are meeting compliance requirements. Some of the things we'll be going over today. One of the ways they do that is actually going out and meeting with CRPs to review, to make sure that all of your documentation's in order. This isn't some sort of gotcha review where they're going to come in the dark of night and ask for these documents. They give plenty of notice. If you don't have everything, you're not immediately removed from the program. We work with you to improve whatever deficiencies are found. But this is just a way to improve the program, make sure everybody's doing what's required of them, and making sure that when people look at the state program, they know that everybody involved is meeting all the requirements that they're supposed to. So it's not a surprise list. We'll go over everything that TWC staff looks for when they go through these desk reviews. And then I'll give Kelvin or Howard an opportunity to talk a little bit about what they see when they go out and do the reviews, anything they'd like you to be mindful of, and then kind of how this process is working in the current environment that we're all in right now. So first, an alphabetical list of your direct labor employees with disabilities, an alphabetical list of indirect labor employees with disabilities or those placed in competitive integrated employment, an alphabetical list of direct labor employees without disabilities, your files containing approved documentation of disability forms for each employee with a disability, and those are employees working on state use contracts only, a plan for integrated employment and a person-centered plan for each individual with a disability. They're looking for your direct labor ratio, and the target direct labor ratio for this program is 75-25, 75 direct labor hours for individuals with disabilities. A copy of any changes to your articles of incorporation or bylaws if they've changed since the last time you were certified or recertified. For CRPs paying subminimum wage, a list of all hourly employees that are paid less than $7.25 per hour and the corresponding documentation and justification of the wage rate. Again, this doesn't apply to everybody, just those utilizing the 14C certificate. Copies of the current prevailing wage rates, time studies, and corresponding piece rate sheets for all operations on which any employee is paid a special minimum wage, and if applicable. And a copy of the agency's current certificate authorizing special minimum wage payment of 14C, if that applies to you. Now, for all CRPs, they're looking at documented health and welfare benefits and records indicating the payment of health and welfare benefits. 2 periods of payroll records for the previous quarter. Looking to make sure you're maintaining payroll, human resource functions, accounting, and all relevant documentation showing that the employees who produce products or perform services under the state use program are individuals with disabilities. That comes straight out of the rules. And then they look at a current copy of your certificate of insurance. So with that, I'll give Kelvin the opportunity to say a few words on the desk reviews and what they're doing with those requirements now.
Okay, everybody, how are you doing? My name is Kelvin. just want to touch bases with you regarding the desk reviews and what are some of the things that we kind of look for as going into details. Like Kyle said, this is not a got you moment. We're not trying to get anyone in trouble or things like that. What we're trying to touch bases with is making sure that documentation for the program is in hand with the CRPs, because I think documentation for the program and have the documentation in line, it gives a good stability of the program. Because if someone else decide to come in and wonder if all the CRPs out there are documenting or have their all documentation in proper line, I think if we go and just keep that in line from a program standpoint, I think those questions will be answered easily with the CRPs. And I know you guys are trying to do a great job in trying to keep those documents in line. I know you guys are busy out there, so we're coming out to help you guys stay in line. So that's our goal. And some of the things that we look for as far as your financial and how you're paying the individual with disabilities. Some of the things we look for is that they're paying above minimum wage. That's our goal. And we always try to compare what you're paying with the individual disabilities to the non-disabled. That's one of the reasons we look at all the alphabetical list of direct labor and what you're paying each one of the CRPs. That's each one of the individual with disabilities. So those are some of the things we look for when we're looking at desk reviews. And just going down that list, if you guys go down that list and you check that list and you make everything that's on that list in line with your documentation, there shouldn't be a problem. So with having said that, we just we'll be looking at, once we get back into visiting CRPs, I think those are the things that you guys should keep in mind when documenting your files and documenting CRPs and things of that nature. But having said that, I want to appreciate you guys attending the meeting. I don't know if Howard have anything you would want to say, but if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Most of you guys have my information, and just call Workforce Commission and ask for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelvin. Yeah, if you ever have any questions on this, you're preparing for a review or anything like that, you can always reach out to us as well.
And to keep in mind, we will contact you, a couple of weeks in advance before we come out. We're not going to just show up. We'll contact you guys at least 2 weeks in advance. How does the CRPs get the list of documentation for desk reviews? We will send that out to you before we come, at least 2 weeks in advance of the list of reviews and items we look for in the review.
That's right. And I've gotten some questions. We'll make this information from this presentation available to everyone as well. If you were here, if we were having this in person, everyone would have their notebook with all of this in front of them for them to take home. So we'll make sure everybody gets this information that attended. All right. Thanks, Kelvin. I had mentioned that one of the responsibilities of the Workforce Commission is to review the rules. So the last time the rules were reviewed and amended, that would have been in 2017. So TWC is looking at the rules again under Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 806. A policy concept was presented to the commissioners, all of the 11 points that staff would like to look at when considering a review of the rules. So what will happen now is they'll draft a revision to those rules, presented to the commissioners. That'll go out for public comment, and then after public comment, then the administrative code would be amended. So I'll go over here now what TWC is looking at to amend as they update the rules and go through this process. First, there's going to be revisions related to SB 753, clarifying the process of transitioning employees to payment above the federal minimum wage. SB 53 was legislation that was passed during the last legislative session that increases or eliminates all sub-minimum wage from the state use program by September 1st of 2022. So they're updating the rules to kind of clarify that process, how that'll work. Also looking to grant the commission the ability to adjust the direct labor ratio requirement. Currently the requirement is 75-25, but if there's opportunities for projects that promote competitive integrated employment, the commission's looking at the ability to lower that direct labor ratio to work on projects focusing on competitive integrated employment. They're looking to explicitly state the unemployment insurance taxes requirement for CRPs. So if a CRP is delinquent in paying their unemployment insurance taxes, there could be repercussions or in their standing as a CRP under the program. Looking for direction on how the advisory committee's actions and recommendations would be presented to the commissioners. So anytime the advisory committee takes an action like those performance measures, the process by which it would be sent to the commissioners for review and then adoption. The staff is looking to give the executive director the authority to approve products and services. So currently all products and services are presented in the public meeting and they have to all be approved by the commissioners. So under this recommendation, the executive director or deputy executive director would have the authority themselves to actually approve products and services at the staff level. And it wouldn't necessarily need to go to the commissioners. That they're hoping could streamline the process and improve the speed by which products and services are approved. Looking to define the qualifications of which individuals can determine whether or not someone has a qualifying disability. So in a little bit when we're talking about documentation of disability forms and disability determination worksheets, there have been questions over the years, who exactly is qualified, what qualifications TWC is looking at to fill out those forms, and there was nothing explicitly stated in the rules or the statute. So they're looking to define that determination, whether it's someone at a CRP or it must be someone outside of the CRP, some sort of third-party individual defining that disability requirement. Looking to require individuals under the program be employees of the CRP and not some sort of 1099 contract labor, so that all employees counted as individuals with disabilities to meet your 75-25 requirement would be W-2 employees of your CRP. And then they're also looking to amend the definitions of value added and appreciable contribution, looking at ways to expand the program and find opportunities, find positions and types of value added that would be transferable to the competitive environment. This isn't looking to limit value added, but actually increase the types of positions that could be filled and met under that value added requirement to increase job training opportunities throughout the state use program. Again, so they'll then take these considerations, actually draft them in rule form, see how the rules need to be amended, and then that'll go out for public comment. So we will keep the CRPs updated, keep you all updated on this process as it moves forward, but wanted to make everybody aware of what to look for when those drafts come out. All CRPs got an email yesterday concerning 14C transition plans. This relates to SB 753 that I talked about, where requires TWC to assist CRPs in developing a transition plan to address payments of sub-minimum wage on state use contracts. So the purpose of these transition retention plans would be to increase all the wages to the federal minimum wage by 2022. They're also looking to retain as many of the workers as possible. So find ways to not only increase the minimum wage, but retain those workers. So an email went out yesterday with that draft training, or with that training and retention plan that CRPs should be filling out. Really, this will affect those small number of CRPs that are paying the special minimum wages using the 14C certificate. But this is to meet that legislative requirement. I want everybody to know what that email was that went out yesterday and those forms that you see and how that affects you. If you're not paying sub-minimum wage, that actually, you're not going to be filling out a transition and retention plan because that doesn't affect your CRP. It's looking at how also the plan impacts those individuals earning sub-minimum wage. What's the wage gap? What would the impact be on their SSI or any other benefits? How can we retain the employees when possible? What skills gap, what trainings needed, what transferable skills can they gain? Are there VR supports that are needed? And really looking at developing person-centered plans and career counseling that'll help transition these individuals to above the federal minimum wage. So all this we talked about can be found in the statute and rules. Just so you're aware, if you didn't know, the state use statute is chapter 122 of the Human Resources Code. The rules, Texas Workforce Commission rules, are Texas Administrative Code, Title 40, Part 20, Chapter 806. You need to find them. They're on our website, WorkQuest.com, under Documents and Links. If you scroll about midway down the page, you'll see state use law and the statute. And you can also find it on the Workforce Commission's Purchasing from People with Disabilities program page. You can see the link there. Something else I want to make sure we highlight that everyone's aware of. This is something we're always pushing at our compliance seminars to make sure we get the most use out of this as possible. Some CRPs aren't aware that we have technical assistance grants available. There's funds available to you, the CRPs, to assist you in fulfilling your contracts. So equipment, other supplies, anything directly related to those service contracts and those products, we have technical assistance grants available. Generally, the limit for those grants are $5,000. They don't have to be paid back. If you need more, that's fine. Send us in exactly what you need. Don't think you shouldn't send it to us just because it's over $5,000. We might just be able to grant you $5,000. We look at those funds at the end of the year, see what's available. We might be able to do a little more. So send that in no matter what. We also have WorkQuest employment service grants. So this is to increase your outplacement of individuals into competitive integrated employment. If you need certification in job skill training or support employment services, director training, anything through the UNT-WISE program or a similar program, we have dollars available and grants available to help pay for those certification courses. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out to us for more information. Contact Christina Bryant. She's our compliance specialist. See her information there at the bottom of the screen. All right, that was a brief update on the program and everything going on with the Workforce Commission. Now we're gonna move into state use program requirements. This is everything that's required of you as a CRP to participate in the state use program. Now for some of you, this is kind of old hat. You've been recertified several times. Fill out your state use wage report quarterly. There are some changes that we wanna make you aware of. So don't think that it's all the same as last year. Because there are some new things here. But for those of you that this is new, you're new to the program, you're new to your position, this is very important documentation that's required to keep your CRP in good standing, that helps us report our successes to the legislature and to the governor to keep this program going so everybody knows what a value it is to individuals with disabilities. So your requirements as a CRP. First, certification. Everyone on here should have been recertified, or should be certified as a CRP. You get recertified every 3 years. You'll get a letter from Kelvin or Howard or someone over at TWC saying it's time to go through the recertification process. You have your state use wage report that some lucky individual at your CRP fills out quarterly. That's submitted through our online portal, which we'll go over. There's an annual set-aside agreement that each CRP has with WorkQuest. And then there are several documents for employees participating in the program. That's both your documentation of disability forms and a person-centered plan that has to be on file for everyone, or a TWC vocational assessment. TWC has developed a new tool for CRPs to use to meet this person-centered planning requirement, which we'll highlight in just a little bit. To submit recertification information or to submit your state use wage report quarterly, it's done through the online portal on our website. We've had our online portal for a few years now, so I'm not going to get too in the weeds on the technical aspects of how you fill out or submit this information through the portal. But if you go on our website under documents and links, there's some training opportunities that we've done before on how to fill this out. So if you go under CRP training and the first CRP training, that's a webinar that explicitly goes over exactly how to submit everything through the online portal and and should help you if you have any questions on that. You've never done that process before. You can also always reach out to us, reach out to Christina Bryant to help walk you through that process. So recertification. To continue in the program, each CRP must be recertified by the commission every 3 years. So when this happens, you gather a lot of documents, you submit them to the CNA, and then we work with you to get all that together and submit it to the commissioners. The commission staff's then briefed on it, and the commissioners actually vote to certify or recertify CRPs. If you fail to respond in a timely manner, the agency may consider the suspension of all state use program contracts until the recertification process has been completed. So if you're not able to get everything on time and your certification lapses, if you have to be tabled to another meeting because you didn't get anything and that lapses, and you can't get any new contracts, you can't set aside any new products, and so it can really hamper your ability to employ individuals and keep your business moving. So we want to make sure everybody is able to get through this recertification process as smoothly as possible. We don't want this to be the reason that you're not able to continue in the program, or there's any stoppage of work, you're not able to get new contracts. So we'll work with you through this process. That's what our compliance department's there for. Your region managers can also help you through this process. So reach out to them if you have any questions, because we want to make sure that this goes smoothly for everybody. All right, CRP requirements found in the rules. Well, this is something that, if you'll remember when we were talking about the desk reviews, this was one of the things that they're looking at, the desk reviews. You're maintaining your payroll, HR functions, accounting, and all of your relevant documentation showing that your employees are individuals with disabilities. We'll go over what kind of documentation you need in a minute. You ensure that the documentation includes your disability determination forms that are signed by the individual and document the disability. It's all adhering to privacy and confidentiality standards applicable to the CRP and the employee records. And I will say that when they come out and look at this, they will be looking at your individual's documentation. That TWC staff are exempt from HIPAA requirements, so they can view that information. When we as WorkQuest are going out to look at this, we do not have that exemption. So we're not interested in seeing names related to the documentation, just knowing that you have it there. So just be aware of that when that's being reviewed. Also, you must maintain and dispose of records or documents required by the agency, including contracts with other entities in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and all laws relevant to the records. Okay, so if you're going through the recertification process, what exactly do you need to send to the CNA? Well, it's all on the portal there, what needs to be uploaded, but no application will be considered without the following, and this all must be submitted complete to the Workforce Commission. We need a copy of your IRS nonprofit determination, your 501c, when that's required by law. So if your state entity, you won't have, or governmental entity, you won't have that. But for everybody else that's a private nonprofit, you've got that IRS nonprofit determination. Now, there's a good chance if you've been certified and nothing's changed that we already have a copy of that. But if we don't, we'll need your IRS nonprofit determination. Copy of your articles of incorporation issued by the Secretary of State when that's required. Looking for the purposes section of the articles of incorporation to say the purpose of your corporation is to employ individuals with disabilities. A list of your board of directors and officers with their names, addresses, and telephone numbers. A copy of your organizational chart with job titles and names, organizational chart of your company. We need proof of current insurance coverage. So the type of insurance they're looking for is liability insurance, auto insurance for any vehicle owned or leased by the CRP that's used on state use contracts, and workers' comp if that's applicable. So if you have a contract that requires workers' comp insurance, then we'll need to see a copy of that. If you're using any sort of trucks or vans or anything like that to fulfill your contracts, we'll need auto insurance. And then of course, everybody will need general liability insurance. Has to be carried with an insurance company authorized to do business in the state of Texas. And any written notice of cancellation or any material change in insurance will be provided to the CNA 10 business days in advance of the cancellation or change. And WorkQuest needs to be listed on that insurance as a certificate holder. A little more information on the insurance. If your insurance is going to expire within 2 months of TWC's review of your certification, you need to write a letter stating that you'll renew the insurance and submit it to TWC when it's available to receive their preliminary approval. And then when you do get it, you need to submit that new insurance documentation to them. If it's not then submitted at time of renewal, then TWC could take further action. So you might have to go through the recertification process again. Your certification could lapse where you can't take on any new contracts or set aside new products while that process is going on. So make sure that you're keeping this up to date and being aware of when your insurance expires and sending in those renewal documents to TWC if it's within that 2-month time frame. Something else you have to submit that can be an issue for some folks, can really drag down this process, so make this one a priority. A fire inspection certificate issued within 1 year of consideration of the application, if it's required by your city, county, or state, for each location where customers will be served or where individuals with disabilities will be employed, or a statement of unavailability. When it says each location, those are locations that you as the CRP own or lease. So that's not your customers' locations. That's not facilities that you clean if you do janitorial services. Those are your locations. But if you have more than one location, we need a fire inspection that's dated within a year from each. If you cannot get that, we need an unavailability statement from whoever would issue that, either the city, the county, or the state. Can't be an unavailability statement from yourself or from WorkQuest. It needs to come from whoever that issuing entity is. And the same goes for a copy of your building inspection certificate or your certificate of occupancy. If there is a building that has a fire inspection, then we need to have a certificate of occupancy as well. And likewise, if you're unable to get a statement of unavailability, or if you're unable to get it, we need a statement of unavailability from whoever that city, county, or state entity is. And I know that these can take a long time to get, especially the fire inspection. So please make this a priority. Understand that if there is a deficiency found, they're going to have to come back out again. It can take time. We don't want anybody's certification lapsing because they couldn't get a fire inspection certificate. So please just be aware that this should be a priority when you're made aware that it's time to go through the recertification process. For those CRPs paying below minimum wage, we have to have a copy of your wage exemption certificate and a statement of explanation of the circumstances requiring sub-minimum wage. For everybody, we'll need a notarized statement that you agree to maintain compliance with your 7525. If you intend to seek a waiver from the 7525, the waiver request must be submitted with the application for approval. So if you're saying the 7525 shouldn't apply to our CRP, this is the time when you would ask for that waiver. And then the final bit of documentation involved in this, an applicant for certification must attest that it either has already developed or will develop within 90 days of certification a person-centered plan for each individual with a disability it employs. It clearly documents attainable employment goals and describes how the CRP will help the individual reach those employment goals and match the individual's skills and desires with the tasks being performed for the CRP. This is something that was started in 2017. I know there's been a lot of some CRPs. This is something that you already did. You've been doing for years. Some, this was a new process for you. There's been a lot of questions over the last several years. We've had some training available. We had Dr. Bill Weber come from Stephen F. Austin and do some training a few years ago on how to complete a person-centered plan. TWC has worked to develop a form that CRPs can use, a standardized form for you all to use to meet this 7520, or to meet this person-centered planning requirement. So that actually went out to everybody yesterday. And I think a new copy, an updated copy of it just went out before this seminar started. So if you haven't seen it, check your email. It should be there. I think Mr. Garcia from TWC sent it out to everyone. We're going to look at that in just a second to see the new tool that they've put in place to help you all meet this requirement. Okay, but to submit this, you go to our documentation portal. You'll see on the right there your application for recertification or certification. So when you log on there, you'll be able to edit your recertification, start a new recertification process. This is everything that you can upload. You select all of the files that we just talked about, your articles of incorporation, a list of your board of directors, upload it onto the online platform here for our review and for TWC's review. If you ever have any question what one of these documents might be, you can just click on the little blue description button there next to it, and it'll tell you what it is. Like this, for instance, would be your articles of incorporation or formation. Not all of these apply to recertification. Some of these are just for certification. So you'll want to look at that descriptor to see if this applies to certification or recertification. But let's look at how you fill out that application. That's all done through this portal as well. So the first one there is application. You edit the form, and then the system's going to prompt you through a number of dialog boxes that you'll fill out that recertification application, and then it'll use your answers to kind of generate that form. So it's not like what it used to be where you'd get the PDF and fill out the PDF and then email it or fax it or mail it over to us. Now you log onto the portal and fill it out this way. So ask for your state use certification number. If you don't know that, we can help you get that, your EIN, name of your CRP, whether you're a nonprofit organization or if you're a government agency. Information, mailing information, physical address, CEO's name, anything like that. Names and titles of those responsible for the following functions. So this is really important. So we know and TWC knows who to contact at your organization if we have any questions on negotiating and signing contracts, on reports that are sent to us, on personnel management. So make sure you put those names there so we'll know who to get a hold of. We constantly referring to these files to make sure we know that we're speaking to the right person when we have a question. Whether you're doing temps, products, or services, or all combination of the three. Current number of employees with disabilities you have. That's for your entire CRP, not just state use contracts. A list of the types of products and services that you have. Is your location accessible to individuals with disabilities? Do you have documentation of disabilities on file for all of your individuals? If not, explain why. Do you have a person-centered plan on file for each individual on a state use contract? If no, please explain why. And then there's a statement there on conflicts of interest. On if there's a conflict of interest between a TWC employee or a family member that has a financial or other interest in the CRP, that must be disclosed at the time of recertification. This is the form that you notarize where you certify that you will meet the 7525. You actually download this from the website, you'll sign it, get it notarized, and then upload it back to the portal. So with all that completed, then once everything's filled out, then we'll review that and submit it to the Workforce Commission, help you get any documents that weren't in place so we can get that all submitted and get you approved. All right, a state use set-aside agreement. This is the agreement between WorkQuest and the CRPs. It's filled out annually. It should be being filled out right about now. We do that before the start of the fiscal year. This outlines the management fee, the relationship between WorkQuest and the CRPs, how any liability, acknowledging that you are responsible for state and federal laws, state and federal taxes. And so this should be filled out. Nothing has changed since the last year. So if we went over some changes that took place in the set-aside agreement last year. But again, there's no changes this year. I want to make you aware, make sure we get that filled out on time so we can continue contracting through the program. All right, let's talk a little bit about the state use wage report. This is where we get all that great information about how this program positively affects individuals with disabilities. Every quarter, the CRP shall submit a quarterly wage and hour report to the CNA. The reports are due no later than the last day of the month following the end of the quarter. So our latest quarter will end in 12 days at the end of August. So when will the next report be due? I can't hear all of you because you're on mute, but the answer should be at the end of September. So at the end of the month following the quarter. Now, we're on kind of a short timeline with this month because we're compiling everything for TWC's annual report that needs to go to the governor and the legislature. If you'll remember, the program year got moved to be in line with the state's fiscal year, which runs from September to August. So we're trying to get all of this information compiled and together so we can get it into that annual report. So please fill out this last quarter's wage report as soon as you can. I know you're all waiting for your payroll and for your books to close, but if you could really make this a priority, we need to get this information over to TWC this time as quickly as we can so we can get it doesn't hold up that annual report. So if you do not send in your quarterly report on time, you may have to appear before the agency. And the agency, big agency with a big A, in this case means TWC, the agency may consider the suspension of your state use program contracts if compliance is not achieved in a consistent and timely manner. So make sure you're getting these filled out. We report on the quarterly report that we give to TWC each month, everybody who has not been submitting their quarterly report, who hasn't submitted on time. So we don't want your name to be on that list. We don't want you to have to be suspended from performing your contract. So make sure you're making the state use wage report a priority and getting it to us before the last day of that month following the end of the quarter. Again, this is filled out, not the old way where I remember I had the fax machine in my office, so it would be buzzing all day that last week of the quarter getting these in, but now we do it through the CRP documentation portal. So you log on to that portal and select state use wage report and log in. If you need any assistance, again, Christina can give you assistance on logging in. And there you'll see all your reports. There's no reports on this example that have been certified yet, but if you're all finished and you've gone through it and clicked certified, then it'll say the date it was certified on and who filled it out. But from here, you either fill out a new report or you can edit one that you've been working on. It doesn't have to all be finished, in one go. But it walks you through these series of tabs that you can fill out to make sure your wage report's complete. So we're doing a wage report here for March, April, and May. So that'd be the third quarter in the month. So that does factor into how this report looks a little bit. I'll go over that on our second tab. But first tab is all about wages, including mandatory and non-mandatory benefits. So this is wages and benefits and hours paid for state use contracts only. So if you have federal contracts, if you have commercial contracts, we're not looking for that information here. This is what we report solely about state use contracts. So we're looking at the direct labor wages paid to individuals with disabilities, any benefits that are being paid to individuals with disabilities. Those are mandatory benefits like your FICA that you have to pay, and then non-mandatory benefits, medical, dental, vacation, any other fringe benefits. And then we're also looking at hours worked by individuals with disabilities. The top three are your wages, benefits, and hours for individuals with disabilities, and the bottom three there are for wages, benefits, and hours for individuals without disabilities. But again, this is just direct labor, so not non-working supervisors, but direct labor for state use contracts. You hit next, you go over the second tab, and you can move throughout these tabs however you want when you're filling this out. Looking at employee tracking. So this is the third quarter, so we're looking at the number of individuals working on state use contracts with disabilities that were added during those 3 months. If it's the first quarter, we first get a baseline, a number of individuals working starting on September 1st to get the number that you start with for that quarter or for that year, and then we add as the year goes on. So you're not going to see a starting number on the third quarter. We just add throughout the year. We're not looking and we're not tracking at individuals that leave the state use program. We're just trying to get a total of the number of lives that are impacted by this program, the number of individuals that pass through the program. So don't add your deleted or your individuals that you lose. Don't report individuals that leave the program. We're just looking for those added. Then you put the number and the type of primary disability that that individual has, which totals at the bottom, and the number of individuals without disabilities working on state use contracts. Or not again, but if these numbers don't add up, the system will let you know when you try to click certification that you've got a math error. If the number at the top doesn't meet the number of disabilities there that's added up, it'll let you know. So it's a good portal that really helps eliminate human error when you're filling out these and help you check your numbers a little bit. So you've got your employee tracking. Section 3 would be non-mandatory benefits for state use contracts. So the number of individuals working on state use contracts, the CRP added, that's receiving non-mandatory benefits for the months being reported, and then the type of benefits that those individuals receive. And then the same information, if you scroll down for individuals without disabilities, what non-mandatory benefits are they receiving? You see the benefit types there. We also want information on those individuals where you offered them a benefit, but they declined. So if you offered employees with disabilities a benefit, but they declined, what types of benefits were offered? You've got 2 boxes there, one for employees with and one for employees without disabilities. So we want to know the types of benefits that were offered, but then were declined. Tab 4 would only apply to CRPs paying sub-minimum wage. So you list the number of individuals making below the federal minimum wage there and what the wage rate would be that they're making. Section 4 or Section 5 is your total company outplacements. So how many individuals from your CRP have been placed in competitive integrated employment in the community for those months? This would be your entire company, not just those working on state use contracts. This doesn't have to be employees of your company. This could be individuals from the community that you're serving, that you're outplacing into other positions or into positions in the community. Want to know what they're making, how many hours they're working, and the type of disability they have. Section 6, though, drills down into state use outplacements. So of individuals that were previously working on state use contracts, how many were outplaced into competitive integrated employment in the community? And again, then reporting the same information on wages, hours, and the type of disability. Section 7 reports upward mobility within a CRP. So this again would be for the total company, not just state use contracts, but for all individuals working in your CRP, how many have been promoted within the months being reported? Again, getting the wages, the hours, and the type of disability. And the final is upward mobility, but on state use contracts. So if you have an individual that was working on state use contracts and were promoted within the CRP, how many? Again, reporting the same information. Section, it was too much to fit on one page, so it scrolls down to get the type of disability. And the final bit of information that we collect is your total company direct labor hours. So this would be for your federal, commercial, and state use contracts. What is the total direct labor? This is not the number that we base the 75-25 ratio on. That would be the hours collected in Section 1, the hours just for your state use contracts. That's all. That's what 75-25 applies to. This is just for information so we can get an idea of how much of the hours worked at your CRP are state use contracts. But again, we do not base our 75-25 or your 75-25 requirement on this. The final page is certification. It's going to take those labor hours from Section 1 and give you what your hourly or what your direct labor percentage is, hopefully hitting that 75%. If not, we're going to go over what the process is in just a sec, but enter the name of your authorized officer, your email address, and click certify. Again, if there's any issues with the numbers that the portal can identify, this is where it will pop up and ask you to go fix those numbers. If not, it'll certify it. It'll send you email you a copy to whatever email address you put in there of your completed state use wage report. We are adding a new question to the state use wage report. TWC's asked us to collect some more information. It wasn't on that report because that was for a previous quarter, but as you are filling out your new reports, you're going to start seeing this question. Does your company offer vocational rehabilitation outplacement services to their employees in an attempt to secure competitive integrated employment that meets their strengths and capabilities? These services include, but are not limited to, adapted visual equipment training, chemical alcohol dependency counseling, educational training and financial planning, high school equivalency prep courses, interview coaching, job placement services, job skills training, and support employment services. So you'll be seeing this question. You can see that TWC is interested on the type of supports that are given to employees to get them into that competitive integrated environment. That is a big initiative for the program, the vocational rehabilitation that is provided to our employees with disabilities that work in the program. So you're going to see another question added to the report based on that. I'm going to hand off the microphone to Roxy Van Leeuw, our Director of Sales, for a little bit. He's going to talk about what happens if that magic number on the certification page doesn't meet 75. Roxy?
Thanks, Kyle. Everybody here, I guess you can hear me okay. So what you'll notice here under, Kyle had talked about the 75-25 requirement. That's under the compliance of Rule 806.41K. It's that compliance will be monitored by the CNA and or the agency, and the violations will be reported promptly to the agency. Violation will result in a warning letter from the CNA or agency, which will then offer assistance as needed to achieve compliance. The key here is that a CRP that fails to meet compliance requirements without a waiver from the agency for 2 quarters in any 4-quarter period shall submit a written explanation, and a representative of the CRP will be requested to appear before the agency. This quarter, in a 4-quarter period, is a rolling 4 quarters, so it doesn't end at the end of the fiscal year. So, for example, if you miss the 75-25 requirement in quarter 3, and then again in quarter 2 the following year, you would miss 2 in a 4-quarter period. So it is a rolling 4 quarters. If you do fall under the 75-25 requirement for 2 times in that any 4-quarter period, you would have to then submit a written explanation and possibly appear before the agency. Since TWC took over, they realized that Texas is a large state, so they have been doing that as a conference call as opposed to you having to send somebody all the way to Austin to appear in front of the agency. For those of you that do not meet the requirements in a 2-quarter period, the state use programs may be suspended and or certification can be revoked if this compliance is not immediately and consistently maintained. To attain reinstatement, the CRP must apply for recertification following the procedures outlined in the chapter. So, Kyle, if you go to the next slide. So the first letter of notification comes from WorkQuest. So that's a letter that I will send out. Generally, that's just a letter reminding you that there is the rule of 75-25, that you did not meet it for the quarter that's listed in that letter, what your numbers were, and again, just a reminder that that rule is there. So there's no requirement for you to respond to that letter. However, if you feel that maybe those numbers are wrong or maybe your report was misread, then that's the point where you could correct that for us, and then we can update everything in the system. If you do hit a 2nd quarter without meeting the 75-25, that letter of notification comes from the Texas Workforce Commission. That is generally signed by Kelvin Moore, and I will countersign that as well. That is where you'll be required to respond to the Workforce Commission in a written letter, and then possibly a conference call with TWC staff and WorkQuest and the CRP. And then again, further action may be taken by TWC. If you have any questions on those throughout, just feel free to send me an email. Or if you get a letter from me, feel free to give me a call or send me an email. I'll be glad to visit with you about that as it happens. So, thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Roxy. Yeah, any questions you have, submit those to Roxy. He really drew the short straw, so he has to send those letters out to everybody. Okay, moving on to documentation of disabilities. To making sure that everybody in this program that participates in this program is an individual with a qualifying disability. Workforce Commission asks that everybody that participates on state use contracts has documentation of disabilities on file. So your necessary documentation, you have to have a disability certification form on file for each employee with a disability working on state use contracts. And that has to be signed by the executive director of the CRP or that executive director's designee. This is what the CRP disability certification form looks like. You can get a copy of it on our website under documents and links. You can look down there at the bottom. The current disability certification form is dated 7/21/17. So if your certification form has anything earlier or any date earlier than July 21st of 2017, you're using an old form, and you need to make sure you're submitting a new form for new individuals going forward. So looking at this form, at the top you've got your CRP name and an employee client number. Now this is something that we would review as WorkQuest, or we could review as WorkQuest, so make sure that you're not putting anybody's name on there, just coming up with a client number and employee number for those individuals so we're not violating any privacy. Whether they're full-time or part-time, and if they've already left your CRP, what their termination date was, and the position they held, and a brief summary of their work performed. Then we're looking at the referral or the evaluation source, how this individual was referred to, or in what way was their disability evaluated. a state government or local social service agency? Was it a VR specialist that made this determination, or some other referral source? And that documentation will be in item 8 below. So looking at item 8, other supporting documentation, types of referral: a medical doctor, psychiatrist, psychologist, proof of SSDI benefits, if they you have the Ability One's evaluation form, Ability One program evaluation form, or some other type of relevant professional evaluation. On item 9, looking at the documentation of disability. So referral sources from 7A, that would be the state government or local social service agency. Above, it has their documentation on file. That implies that they made the determination. A disability determination from a VR specialist, that's item 7B. That means that there would be an accompanying disability determination worksheet. We'll look at those. And the disability determination form recognized in 7C should include their determination that the disability impedes the individual from maintaining gainful employment. So you'll need to have that attached documentation for each of those items. And then finally, at the bottom of this form, your CRP director or designee would sign that you certify that the form is accurate. And please note that an employee disability consent form must be included. So not only do you have to have a disability certification where someone is certifying that disability, for each individual you have to have that the employee is consenting that they're counted as an individual with a disability under the program. It has to be signed by that employee or by their legal representative. So this is what the disability consent form looks like. They have reviewed the form, dated whatever the date of that disability certification form is. They understand that they will be counted as a person with a disability under this program. We don't have both of those together, then that individual can't be counted towards your 75-25. Finally, there was if a vocational rehabilitation specialist is making the determination, they have to fill out the disability determination worksheet. Again, that can be downloaded from our website, and it's a 4-page document that just goes through different disability impairment indicators that individual would fill out, and where they would make the determination that they're certified that they are an individual with a disability and it's impeding them from gainful employment, and what their evaluation, what their criteria is, what their qualifications are. Excuse me. I see a question: what credentials are required for a VR specialist? Right now, that's something that TWC is looking at to fully define what credentials are going to be required for this. So currently, if you are a VR counselor or if you are a VR specialist, there's no set qualifications for who can fill out this form. But again, TWC is looking at that and will be addressing those qualifications through the rules process. TWC vocational assessment. So this is to meet the person-centered planning requirement. TWC has been working to develop this standardized form for a while, something that all CRPs can use to meet the person-centered planning requirement. There's such a wide variety of ways that CRPs were performing these person-centered plans. Several had asked for guidance on how to fill out a person-centered plan. And so TWC decided that it would make the most sense for one standardized form to be required under the program for CRPs to use when assessing and performing person-centered plans for these individuals. So they adopted the employee-centered vocational assessment that takes place of the person-centered plan. It's required for all employees with disabilities working on state use contracts. So if an individual has a documentation of disability form, then they also need a person-centered plan. You don't need to fill it out for your non-state use employees, and it would be completed annually. Now, this is the email we were talking about. This went out to all of the CEOs yesterday and today. If you didn't get it, make sure you reach out to your CEO to get a copy of this. We'll also be putting this form on our website, but this is brand new. A brand new form. WorkQuest will hold an in-depth training with a subject matter expert on how to fill out an employee-centered vocational assessment. We're just going to look at this at a high level today because it's brand new, just came out yesterday. But we will, in the very near future, in the next month or so, hold training dedicated to just this requirement to help the CRPs be able to fully understand how to use this tool to conduct those person-centered plans. So the employee assessment format, you've got your employee work preference assessment, your employee assessment of their work history. This is a process that is done between someone at your CRP and the employee. The employee is an active participant that's filling out their work preference, determining their preference, their history of work. Then you're looking at employee work behaviors, developing a training plan to help them meet goals and objectives, and acknowledging that competitive integrated employment could be an outcome of this process. So this is the form. It's an 8-page form. It sounds long, but a lot of it is taken up by these quick yes or no questions that have to be filled out. The first section is the employee work preference assessment. So this is where you're working with the individual, where they're determining what job requirement, if they got a job, what would be okay and not okay, any comments they have. Things like working indoors, working outdoors, writing, math, doing the same thing all day. They like to do different things all day. What are their employment preferences? That goes on for several pages, a lot of different scenarios, so you can gather that information on what the employees' skills are, what their desires are when you're matching them with employment and determining what their employment goals could be, helping them with those employment goals. How many hours a day do you like to work? How many days a week do you like to work? And then assessing their work history. Where have they worked before? What jobs have you liked? What jobs have you not liked? What were things about the jobs you like? What were things about jobs you didn't like? Now that you've thought about what you like, you don't like, make a list of jobs that you might like and the kinds of places you'd like to work. TWC, when they were developing this, they looked at some current person-centered plans that CRPs fill out. They looked at VR's person-centered plan. They pulled together a lot of resources to kind of tailor this document to meet the needs of individuals in this program. And then employee work behaviors. This is where the CRP would look at the employee and kind of evaluate their skills and their work behaviors, arriving on time, arrives well groomed, reports to work area, to see their work assessment. Page 5 has a training plan. So training and supports that would be needed to address the goals and objectives that will be determined by this plan. And then bottom of the page is the competitive integrated employment acknowledgement that this plan could result in employment outside of the CRP environment in the competitive integrated employment environment. This is to show, I think, that there's been an informed choice given to the individual so that it's absolutely clear to everyone involved that they're individuals given the choice to work and develop a plan to work wherever they would like to work, be that a CRP or at a competitive integrated employment environment. So this is where this training plan, I don't believe, is necessarily isn't saying that the goal has to be to go into competitive integrated employment if that's the individual's preference. I think this would be the tool where that would be documented, what the individual's preference is and what their goals to achieving their highest level or their desired employment, wherever that may be. And that way it can be documented and shown, be that at the CRP or somewhere else in the competitive integrated employment environment. That's what this is used for. This is a requirement for all CRPs. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the chat function here. The certification requirements and the recertification requirements apply to all CRPs, not just, it's not contingent on the type of employment that you have. It's also not saying if someone is working in a competitive integrated employment environment, then they don't need the person-centered planning to match the job type with whatever their desires and their skills are. So no, this is required for everyone. It's something that's part of your certification when you're certified under the program. And then based on the information on the previous 5 pages, that's where CRP and the individual develop goals and objectives and set specific milestones for those goals and objectives to match the whatever job or whatever supports there may be that are developed in this document. Yes, any individual that's currently employed in this program, question if we need to get an assessment complete on current staff, every individual needs to have a person-centered plan in place. That's not a this moment forward. And anybody that's currently under the state use program should have a person-centered plan in place. In fact, before this form came out, there should have already been a person-centered plan in place for everybody. That's been a requirement of anyone in the program since 2017. And then the employee would sign this, whoever's assessing would sign this. And then if the employee receives support from a VR counselor, then the VR counselor would be a part of this process as well, and they would sign it. Again, this is a new form. This is something that was put in place to help all CRPs standardize what the person-centered planning process would look like. We will develop a training with a subject matter expert and get that out to you guys as soon as possible to help everyone use this tool and be able to successfully fill it out. So it is new. If you're saying, I haven't seen this before, it just came out yesterday. Yes, this is going forward, I believe now from this moment. And Kelvin, I don't know if you want to speak on it any, but going forward, this is the form that TWC wants the CRPs to use.
Yes, that is the form. I think this will be, we're trying to make this the final form, but it's going forward. This being the first form. Next, year or two, anything can change, but going forward, this will be our form that we will be using. So if you have any questions on how to fill it out, feel free to contact us. Or if you have a problem with if certain items should be entered or not, feel free to contact us or even WorkQuest. So this is our form.
Thanks, Calvin. Someone just asked if I could please link to the site where this form can be downloaded. Again, it hasn't been uploaded to the WorkQuest website yet because it's so new. But when it is, it will be at that link, and we'll get this form added to the website. But when it is, that's where it will be. And I will send that to. There you go. Everyone should have that now. And yes, this I think the intention is this would be filled out annually for each employee. Okay. Any more questions on that? Anybody wants to put in the chat? If you have more questions, you can always reach out after this training as well to any of us. All right, service and product contracting. Service contracting, looking at the rules, there are certain requirements that CRPs have to meet under service contracts to get approval of the commission. 35% of the contract price of the service, that's the total price, must be paid to individuals with disabilities who perform the service in benefits and wages. Supply cost for the service must not exceed 20% of the contract price, and the admin cost must not exceed 10% of the contract price. At least 75% of the hours of direct labor for each contract must be performed by an individual with disability. The agency may establish a different percentage if the agency determines that a percentage greater than 75% the offered service is reasonable based on consideration of the following factors. Past practices in a particular area, whether a CRP is providing the same or similar service has achieved the 75% requirement, whether the commission has established a policy goal to encourage employment of individuals in a particular field. So that's not saying lower than 75%. The current rule allows the agency to raise that percentage above 75%. So they're looking in the new rules revisions of having a mechanism to lower that percentage. All right, I am gonna let Roxy take the floor for a little bit and talk about service contracting requirements and going through how to fill out a service cost analysis.
All right, thanks, Kyle. So Kyle just kind of went through real quick on the requirements of the 75, 25, the 35%, 10%, and 20%. So this talks a little bit about that. In service contracting, you know, we should get specifications from the agency. We need to read those specifications, understand what they are asking for, ask questions, don't assume, and then we use those in negotiations to justify and negotiate our pricing. Just from past experience, you know, we deal with so many different people through this process that we're working with the local office, but the specifications are written by the procurement office. So what the local office is expecting may not match what the actual specifications are saying. So we want to make sure we understand what that office is expecting of us, and does it match what's in those specifications? Because if it doesn't, we need to get that, you know, figured out at the beginning before we get into this contract. Price proposals or your cost analysis, that is the basis of your pricing. It is reviewed by TWC, and it shows how the CRP allocates those monies from that contract. Then, of course, Kyle talked about the set-aside agreement between the CRP and WorkQuest. That's done annually. You are responsible for training of your staff and clients, and also responsible for quality control, which WorkQuest will also do quality control of these contracts as we go through. So the next slide, we'll talk about the cost analysis that's done. This is actually page 2, which is where you'll start entering your information on your costing. So the next slide, Kyle, is the labor section of this. So you'll see at the very top you have direct labor costs, where you would put in your individuals with disabilities, the number of hours they're working, and what their hourly pay rate is. And then the section right below that would be your non-disabled employees. And what that'll do is that'll add all that up, and you'll see item C there on the left. That is an auto-populated field. It will take your numbers of hours that you've submitted in the above lines, and it'll tell you if you're at 75% or not. If it's below 75, it'll come up in red numbers, and you'll have to either adjust, or we'll have to explain why we're not meeting 75% if we can't. That could happen on a very small contract where it requires 3 individuals to work it. 2 of those individuals are persons with disabilities and 1 without, and they're all working the same amount of hours, so you'd be at 66%. So we would just have to explain that to TWC, and then it would be up to them to decide whether or not that's a viable contract within the program, and we could continue on with those services. Next slide, Kyle. The next section down is the indirect labor or supervisory costs while not performing direct labor for both disabled and non-disabled employees. These numbers don't account for your 75-25. And this is generally going to be an individual that does not necessarily work directly on that contract. If it's a janitorial contract, they're not ever cleaning the building, but maybe they're responsible for getting the crew to and from the location. So that's a cost to you, the CRP, that you put in there as far as the number of hours that individual might work in assisting that crew getting to and from. So that's your indirect labor cost. You go to the 3rd page. This is where you'll start seeing employee benefits. Next slide, please. And then the employee benefits, you'll see the FICA rate is automatically calculated based on the information you put in on page 2. And then here's where you could add in any workers' compensation costs that you may have, any medical and life insurance that you may offer, and any other benefits that you may offer to your employees that work on this contract. That'll add all those benefits up. And then you have your insurance right below that for your comprehensive general liability, vehicle, and any other insurance cost. The next section down is your equipment cost. You have equipment amortization. This is where you'd put in any equipment. If it's a landscaping contract, you had to go buy some 0-turn mowers. you don't expense the entire cost of that mower. You take the cost of that mower minus any salvage value. So let's just say it's a $3,000 mower. Salvage value is $500. So you would be able to figure it at $2,500. Say the life of that mower was 5 years. So 25 divided by 5, that'd be a $500 per year cost to this contract. Then, of course, you have your equipment operating costs, any gas, oil, maintenance, mileage, or any other cost for operating those equipments. And then supplies and non-amortized equipment. Here's where you put in your, weed trimmer strings, vacuums that for janitorial contracts, whatever, items that don't have to be amortized. The next section, which is page 4. And then you got your other expenses. Next slide, please. Under other expenses, this would be uniforms. If you provide cell phones to supervisors or your crew teams, those would be costs that would fall under other expenses. Then you have your administrative overhead costs. As per the rules, this should not exceed 10%. You have a contingency cost. There is no sets on that, but generally we would say those should not exceed 10% as well. Contingency is your cost of, again, landscaping contract. It's gas today is $1.90 a gallon. 6 months from now, it could be $3 a gallon. So you're not going to know that. And this could be a 2-year contract. So that contingency helps offset any hidden costs that we can't see that could happen throughout this contract. Once you've entered all your information there, you're going to get your subtotal, and that is the CRP's cost to do this contract. We then add in the 6% for the WorkQuest cost management fee, and then that's the total amount of the contract that's proposed to the agency. And then here at the very bottom of that page, you'll have the item D. That information is automatically calculated off the information you've entered. And then off to the right, it'll say whether you're at 35% of wages and benefits to persons with disabilities. And then you have the number of persons with disabilities employed on this contract. And looking at item D on the left there, when you do a renewal for a contract, it's going to ask you on page 1 your estimated and actual wages. This is where your estimated wages come from. Item D, total dollar amount of disabled and direct and indirect labor, including benefits paid to persons with disabilities. So when you're renewing a contract, you would get that information from the previous year's cost analysis to put on that contract, on the new cost analysis. Next slide, Kyle. Excuse me. So this is page 1, and at the top you'll see the items are contract number, the date prepared, performing CRP. That's just all the information you would enter in there for who your contacts are. You get to the middle section. Again, these are items based on the information you put in on pages 2, 3, and 4. It automatically populates it into this section. So there's nothing for you to do here other than make sure your numbers all add up to your actual cost. And at the very bottom, like I said earlier, if this is a renewal contract, in the left you'll put your estimated wages, which comes from page 4, item D, and then your actual wages, which you would get from your accounting department on how much were paid out against that contract for the previous year. If those wages are less than the estimated wages by more than 10%, then we have to explain what happened on that, why we paid out fewer wages than we anticipated. So cost analysis, the information from the cost analysis is presented to TWC for contract consideration. Contracts cannot be signed until a complete and accurate cost analysis has been submitted to WorkQuest, and payment cannot be guaranteed on contracts performed without signed contract and a valid PO. So I know we've had in several years past where we, especially on a renewal contract, where the agencies ask us to continue the work and that they promise are going to get us that PO. That is a risk that we or you, the CRP, take, that if they don't get us that PO, we may not get paid for services rendered. So we got to be very careful, that we make sure we're getting the information we need to move forward. If it means pulling our crew, which I know most of us don't want to do that, but making sure that we get the information. I will say HHSC has been pretty adamant here this year that If we perform work without a PO, we will not get paid on that. So we need to make sure we have that in place. So just keep those kind of things in mind when we're renewing contracts. So this is the, we take all the information from the CRP's cost analysis. We have to compile it into a report that goes to TWC. This is what that report looks like. We do these every 6 weeks of every single contract we do. If it's a new contract, a renewal contract, if it's just a temporary contract for a one-time service, that all has to be reported to TWC with the information that's collected off that cost analysis. So what you'll see here is pretty much all the same information that's on page 1. Your labor costs, your non-disabled, your disabled labor, benefits, insurance costs, equipment costs, etc. All that's compiled in there, and then you'll notice the total cost of the contract is $96,000. And off to the right is your percentages, and then it'll add up to 100%. And if anything's outside of what the program requirements are, then we have to have notification of what those, why we're not meeting those requirements for that contract in order for TWC to approve those contracts. Next slide. Okay. So this is the, oops, sorry, Kyle, the program requirements here. So I kind of got a little hit of Kyle on that one, but you'll see right here where on this particular sample, we're showing you it's 93%, which is greater than 75%. Wages and benefits to the disabled was at 61%, so greater than the 35%. Then your supplies was less than 20%, and your admin overhead was less than 10%. So that would all meet the program requirements as is. If any of those are outside of those numbers, we have to then explain that. So, okay. Is there any questions about those cost analysis and what we have to do with them? So very important we get those in a timely manner so we can get these reported to TWC in a timely manner. You know, it's one thing that if a contract starts August 31st or September 1, TWC is expecting those contracts in their hands usually by the next book that we process, which would be probably within a 4 to 6 week period, depending on what our cutoff time is as we're doing these books that we submit to them. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or just reach out to your region manager and they can help you with those items. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Roxy. Now we're going to go over the product side of things, the product assignment process, and what we look for, what the region managers and everybody looks for in that assignment process, and go over a product cost analysis. But I wanted to give Ray Zaman, our Director of Product Management, a second to reintroduce himself. He has got a new position since our last time we did compliance seminars, and talk a little bit about his department. Ray?
Thanks, Kyle. Hello, everyone. Many of you know me. For those I haven't met yet, I am Ray Zaman. I've been with WorkQuest the last 16 years. I started as the regional product manager in the Houston office. In 2013, I moved to the Austin office, where I was when I started as the product research and development manager. And then earlier this year, right before the pandemic hit, became the director of product management. So I'm still working on the research and development side of products, but also focusing more on sales, working with the customer service team and the product sales team and CRPs with products to maximize our sales with the state. So whenever we get to the other side of this pandemic, you'll all see me out in the field more often, visiting with the CRPs and agencies. In the meantime, anything product related, you can contact me or your local product region manager, and we're still out here working on products.
Thanks, Ray. Ray mentioned R&D, and part of that is the product assignment process. So we'll go through the product assignment process. Kelvin, did you have something you'd like to say?
Yes, sure. Yeah, there's a couple of things I would want to touch bases on. One of them is, when Roxy was talking about cost analysis on cost, and of course there's cost analysis on products. CRPs and services and products, when you determine your cost analysis, and please keep your cost in mind when you're trying to increase your cost, or when you're trying to develop a cost. Know that I know the state agencies are kind of mandated to use your program. Try not to take advantage of that, because those and try not to, for lack of a better word, price the CRPs out the market, because we are trying to, especially this time coming up with, some of the agencies' budgets are being slashed. Just keep that in mind when you're determining your cost analysis and changing your prices. And I know some of some of the new CRPs that are coming in. I think, if I remember correctly, there's probably about 4 or 5 new CRPs. Just I know some of this can be kind of overwhelming to you guys. If you have any questions, those sales managers out in the field can be very helpful. I know what they should be doing is all the new assignments that come up is taking in mind that you guys are new, and they'll go out their way to try to help you guys, the new CRPs, with developing their service analysis and things of that nature. And try not to throw them to the wolves, but just try to keep them in mind that they are new. And you guys, they do a great job. It's all the new CRPs that are, trying to get that we've certified here in the last 6 months or so. So that's all I had to say. Just touch bases with, concerning cost analysis and keeping those costs in mind.
Thanks, Kelvin. Sorry, Kelvin was trying to get my attention, and that's a little harder to do in this environment. He'd eventually text me and say, hey, let me talk. So now I think I'll talk about the product assignment process. So there's a couple of different ways that this can go. If you guys identify a product opportunity, you want to make sure that you're the CRP that's able to move forward with that. So before you do anything, please request an assignment to WorkQuest in writing. You can do it the old-fashioned way by letter, or send an email to Ray or Nina, our product analyst, to make sure that you're the CRP that's assigned that you're the one working on it, that someone else isn't working on the same thing you're working on, and they could maybe beat you to it and get it turned into TWC before you do, because we don't want CRPs competing with identical products. If another CRP already has that assignment, you can receive the backup assignment. So you have a CRP has 180 days to actively develop that product to show that they're making progress on it. And after that time, the product could move to the backup CRP. And if you have the assignment, you'll get an assignment letter from our products department. So please don't move forward on something without letting our products department know, so we can check our assignment records to see if someone already has the current assignment on that, and see if maybe we need to do a backup assignment, or check on them to see if the assignment can be released. So after you have that assignment letter, that's when you would develop product and adding that product to the stage program. If WorkQuest develops a product, or a customer comes to us with an opportunity and no CRP has that assignment, then we'll evaluate the certified CRPs under a number of criteria there, and I'll go over them individually in a second. And then we'll assign that CRP via assignment letter, that award, and then the CRP would develop the product. So the big takeaway here that we always say is just make sure you keep us in the loop and you formally request assignments, so we can make sure that nobody is spinning their wheels on something that someone else is already working on and could already be halfway through the process. When we're looking to assign products or services to CRPs, these are the criteria that our R&D department and our region managers use. The ability to perform the specifications. Customer requests, sometimes customers ask for a specific CRP. Does the CRP have the adequate financial resources that would be required to fulfill that contract? Is the workforce available or in place, or can you meet the requirements of the contract with the workforce you have available? We don't want a new CRP that doesn't have any employees to be taking on an entire building with 10 stories or something like that. We want to make sure everybody succeeds. Do you have adequate supervision? Does the CRP have enough supervision in place to meet the requirements? What is the CRP's need or desire to grow or ability to grow at that time? We look at past performance on similar contracts or products. Are you currently performing work for that customer? There may be a situation where if you're already working with a customer, that familiarity may benefit the relationship. Location, is the location prohibitive or is the location specifically advantageous for whatever that project may be? And then all things being equal, we seek equitable distribution of products and services among CRPs. If you've identified a product and you're going to request adding a new product, then like a service cost analysis, the commissioners review a product cost analysis. What you're looking at here would be a price renewal, or not a renewal, but a price revision, where you have all the information about the product on the left. In the middle, you've got the cost breakdown of the old cost analysis and then the revised amount. If it's a new product, then there will be no old cost analysis, and it'll just be the new cost breakdown there on the right. So you've got your product name, description, is detailed as description as we can get, as we're requesting this be reviewed by the Comptroller's Office and TWC. TWC is also entering into an agreement with Texas State University to do quality testing on products. So that'll, during this time when you're adding something new, then that'll go through that process as well. So we'll need a good description to make sure we're looking accurately, comparing things apples to apples. We'll have competitive pricing information straight out of the statute and rules. That can be the amount paid by federal agencies, amount paid by private businesses, amount paid by the state in recent purchases, the actual cost of manufacturing the product, or the usual, customary, and reasonable costs of manufacturing, marketing, and distribution. So the state's going to look first and foremost, if they have a contract for that product, what that price is, or what they've paid in the past for that product, to see what that competitive pricing information would be. We ask that you send us competitive information. We'll do a review ourselves, and then the statewide procurement division of the Comptroller's Office will also do a competitive pricing analysis and give that information to TWC to help them when they make their recommendation. You have your delivery time and your freight message. Comptroller's Office prefers that freight be included in all products, but when it's not, this is where you detail what that freight message would be, those freight requirements would be. The number of people with disabilities employed, or you anticipate to be employed on that product line, and the percent of direct labor wages that will be paid to those individuals. And then you've got your breakdown of costs, from material costs, your direct labor, to your indirect labor, the supervisor's not performing that direct labor. And this is for individuals with and without disabilities, all together in one labor category. Your personnel costs, all necessary salaries, benefits for directors, payroll staff, your non-direct and indirect labor staff. And then the cost to support those individuals and the agency staff, including office supplies, office equipment, travel, advertising, things like that. And occupancy costs, anything for your space, your maintenance, repair, supplies, equipment, other expenses related to your occupancy. Under overhead administration, we have equipment amortization. Roxy talked about equipment amortization. This is where you would do that for any equipment with a value of $1,200 or more and expected useful life of 3 years or more. Your freight allowance, when you're including freight within the product. Any other costs that aren't represented in those categories. Your contingency, those dollars that you put in for unexpected things that would happen, like your wages have to go up if there's a minimum wage increase, if there's a raw material cost increase, or we all know that the cost of freight is constantly changing. So that's where you'd work in that contingency there. Like Roxy said, 10% is generally considered the ceiling for that. There's no set rule. And then that would all be added up. That would be your total cost. After that, there's a number of things that could be added to it. Warehouse allowance. If WorkQuest is warehousing and distributing your products out of our Austin Central Store warehouse, then you'd add the warehouse allowance. All products receive the management fee to participate in the program. The Workforce Commission reviews that and sets that annually. Currently, that's a 6% fee on all products. And then anyone who does business through the Texas Smart Buy platform. That's the comptroller's platform, way agencies purchase products through the state. Anyone who's a part of that has to pay a 1.5% fee on top of their product, and that pays for the comptroller's portal and their administration of that portal. So that's added as well. All that's added up and you get your total. That's the final price that's considered for approval by the Texas Workforce Commission. That form has to be signed and then sent in to Ray and his team for review and then approval. It goes to comptroller and the Workforce Commission and then staff and then finally the commissioners. And then once it's approved, the comptroller puts all of our products on Texas Smart Buy so it can be procured by the agencies. Anytime you're submitting a new product or a product revision, we need to make sure that we have a value-added statement on file that can be approved as well to make sure that the product meets the value-added requirements of the program. Currently in the rules, this is the definition of value-added: the labor of persons with disabilities applied to raw materials, components, goods purchased in bulk form resulting in the composition or marketability of component materials, packaging operations, and/or the servicing tasks associated with a product. Pass-throughs are not allowed, therefore solely affixing packaging label to a commodity does not qualify. This is another thing that, another item that the Workforce Commission is reviewing as they review the rules to amend and better define or further define the definition of value added and then appreciable contribution as well. So you take the work that's being done and in as detailed a way as possible, all the work that's being performed by individuals with disabilities would be detailed in the value added statement. So any product line for any new products or revisions or anytime there is a change in that value added, we need to get a signed value added statement. And we pass that on to TWC for their approval as well to make sure that all the products in the program are meeting those value added requirements. So please be as detailed as you can when filling out value added statement for every bit of work that's being performed by an individual with a disability. A recap on everything we've talked about related to compliance in the last few hours. Necessary paperwork: we need your recertification every 3 years. You submit it through our portal. State use wage report comes in every quarter. Again, that's submitted through the portal. You have your documentation of disability form, you have one on file for every worker with a disability. Set-aside agreement is filled out annually with WorkQuest. You have your cost analysis, one for every product or service contract, and a value-added statement, one for every product line. Remember on these, please be timely, complete, and accurate. This information is so important to make sure that the program runs smoothly, to make sure that we're able to get your products and services set aside as quickly as possible, and we're able to keep employing those individuals with disabilities to continue being such a strong program. All right, that is what we have for you today. I appreciate everybody participating in this kind of new format of compliance seminar. Miss being able to come out and see all of you in person, but are there any other questions? We have about 9 minutes here. Anybody have any questions? And if you do, if it's too much to type or you don't want to get into the weeds on it right now, you can always reach out to us, kradford@workquest.com. That's my email address. Our information's on the website on where to find us. But if anybody has any other questions, we will make this available to the CRPs, this presentation. I know there were some questions on the different forms we went over. We'll make all that information available to everybody. I'll give it a few more minutes. How does the pandemic affect the percentages currently? That's a great question, because with the current environment and the way the population that's being served through this program, CRPs have had issues meeting the 75-25 ratio. While there's no official stance being taken or no official mechanism put in place by the Workforce Commission to address 75-25, when they review those, do those compliance reviews, that information is being taken into account, that the pandemic or your employment is being affected by employees sheltering in place, having to stay at home, not being able to come at work for personal or medical reasons, whatever that may be. So they're taking all of that in mind. They review everything on a case-by-case basis with the CRPs. So if you don't meet that 75-25, and when you receive that letter of noncompliance, that's where you would detail whatever those circumstances are that would have kept you out of compliance for that quarter, and then TWC would take that into account. You're welcome. Again, we'll get this information out to everyone. I know some people were wondering again about the checklist for the desk reviews. If you're up for a desk review, TWC will provide you with the information they're looking for before they come out and do that. I got a question about that sent to me privately. But we'll make this available to everyone so you can have this information as well. Thank you all. Appreciate this. And if there's no more questions, we will see you all next time.